Big changes ahead for iOS and iPadOS at this year's WWDC. Let's talk about it. Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the biggest tech event of the year for all the Apple nerds out there, WWDC, or Worldwide Developers Conference. This event was first held in 1983 as a conference for Apple to showcase product and third-party developers to work with Apple and learn through various workshops throughout the week. It wasn't until 2002 that Apple turned the event into a platform for announcing new software and hardware. But if you're not a developer, the big event is the first day when Apple now introduces or announces the new versions of iOS, iPadOS, and macOS. This year, that day is going to be June 9th at the Apple campus. It's also when, traditionally, developers get their hands on those early betas. So let's talk about some of the things I'm hoping to see this year, including things we've heard are going to happen next week at WWDC. There are three things I'm focused on for this year's event. The first one is iOS. iOS should be release version 19 this year, but there's a rumor that Apple's going to change things up and make this year's release match the release year. So iOS 26, iPadOS 26, and so on. Samsung did this back in 2019. Apple's changed up versions on iPhones before, but iOS releases have been consistent. There was the first iPhone, and then we jumped to the iPhone 3GS. iOS versions quickly stopped matching phone releases. Then we jumped from the iPhone 8 to the iPhone X to the iPhone 11. The other big change that could happen is OS changes to make the UI look more uniform across the product line. Do you ever notice that iOS uses settings and macOS uses system settings? I think it's time to start tweaking the OS versions to have common names and settings. It'll be a learning curve for some, but in the end, it should make jumping from macOS to iPadOS to iOS much more smooth. The new iOS is rumored to be the biggest UI update for the iPhone and iPad in a while, and suggestions are saying it's going to look more like visionOS, which should be very cool. The second thing I hope for every year are more updates to iPadOS to make it more of a laptop replacement. I'd like to see some updates to Notes and Mail specifically. With Notes, I'm dying for them to support Markdown. The beauty of Notes is its simplicity, but I wouldn't mind a couple of more features added to it. Mail could use more continuity between Mail on Mac and Mail on my iPhone. I was disappointed in the new version of Spark, so I went back to using Apple Mail, but I missed the color labels I could assign to different email accounts in Spark. I can set up rules with Mail on my Mac, but those don't carry over to my iPhone. So it's little improvements like that. And let's not forget about iPadOS. I'd love to see some feature improvements to iPadOS that will let me detach from my Mac more. And finally, I want to hear what Apple's doing with Apple Intelligence. There have been delays, and companies like Google, Microsoft, and Meta have come out with their own LLMs or large language models with Gemini, Copilot, and Llama. Apple Intelligence is using ChatGPT as an extension right now to help it along, but I feel like Apple is lagging a little with development here, and I'm hoping to see some improvements. I'm very excited to share with you all the new features and UI of the next OS releases, so be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you know when I post new updates. But I'm curious, what things are you hoping Apple introduces at WWDC? Software, hardware? Will you be running the developer beta of the new OS? Drop a comment below and let us know. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and we'll talk soon.